We're going to look now at an example of sonata form. This is Beethoven's Sonata number 18 in G minor, Opus 49, number 1. This is the Andante movement from there. Let's take a look at the big picture first, then we'll start dividing it up into smaller bits. You can see the exposition in a hurry by just looking for the repeat sign. So we could write exposition on that right away, expo for short. And following the double bar, we know the development's going to come, so I'll write that in on there. There's our development section. And to find the recapitulation, we just need to look for this opening thing. So let's see if we can find that. That's a little tricky, I see it now, but we don't have the pickup. It just leads right in by this chromatic motion. B natural, C, C sharp, D, but then we get it. So it really does exactly what it did once you get past that pickup. Recap starts there. Okay. That's the big picture. Exposition, development, recap, recapitulation. Let's go to the exposition now and divide it up into smaller chunks. We know that there are three main things that are going to happen there. We're going to get the first theme group, then we're going to get a transition, and then second theme group. This is very small, so I think there's only one theme per first theme group and in the second theme group too. Okay, so here's a phrase. Okay, so there's our leading tone. We've got a half cadence here. What I do first is I really listen for cadences. That's a half cadence in the main key, G minor. This starts just the way this one did. So if we call this A, this second phrase is going to be maybe A2. We'll see if it's changed much. So far, okay, here we're starting to diverge a little bit. And a lot. Okay, so here's a cadence. It helps that there are rests to help mark it off. But F, what are we doing on F? Oh, it's pretty open-ended and on F. By the way, we're headed to B flat. So if we're going to B flat major, it means we're moving from G, B flat. We're going to 3 then. Okay, now I think you can probably answer the question, what's F major doing here? Well, if we're moving to the new key, B flat, what is F? It's 5, right? So if we've got 5, that's a half cadence in, and I always write this, I always say in what key. You could say in 3 as well, just so that you identify the fact that you're not in the main key, you're in a new key. Well, what gets us to the new key is a transition. So even though this begins exactly as that did, this is the transition. It's good to know that there are loads of what are called dependent transitions. Transitions that start exactly like the first theme group. It's called dependent because it's relying on the first theme group's material for some of its content. So this is a dependent transition because it's using this A material again. Now it varies it has to vary it because it's got a new harmonic goal. It's got to get to a half cadence and B flat. The modulation has to happen somewhere in here. Let me just mention something else that's kind of interesting about this opening stuff here. The first theme group. Let me put this in. So this is the exposition as a whole, but let me write in first theme group to identify this phrase. Now notice it's just one phrase, but it's called the first theme group. Groups can have any number of themes in them. This happens to have one. Okay, so a few details about the first theme group. This phrase starts with an idea and then does the same idea but with one little variation. Instead of that C, it goes up higher to the E flat, scale degree 6. So we get a 2 measure unit, motive. You probably know where I'm going with this. This is a special kind of structure that happens over and over. Let's see if we get the rest of it. Two measures, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 to get us to the cadence. 2 plus 2 plus 4. And we're getting a motive, I'll call it X. Get it again. And then this is quite different, isn't it, from that? Call that Y. So we're getting X, X, Y, and 2. We're getting the right dimensions and the right motivic structure for sentence structure. This is a sentence. You can also tear it down a little further and find that this 4 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, divides out into 1 plus 1 plus 2. See how this little idea comes back here? This half step comes back there. This motion down here is echoed by that step down. So this measure long chunk approximately comes back here again, and we get 1 plus 1 plus 2. A little sentence then within a sentence. I could say it this way. The continuation of the bigger sentence is also a sentence. So that 4 equals 1 plus 1 plus 2. A little review of sentence structure built in here. On transition, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bars is not going to form a sentence just because it can't fulfill those durational proportions. It can't go 1 to 1 to 2 with 7. But you can see a similarity in that you've got idea stated again and then contrast, but for 3 instead of 4 measures. So it's a little bit warped out for sentence structure, but you can see the remnants of it there. After the transition comes the second theme group, and since we are in the new key, this is the second theme group. Once you've gotten there, everything after that cadence in the new key is second theme group material. Take a good listen to this chunk of music so that you can recognize it and know it. It's different, very different from the opening. Just be aware that Haydn sometimes uses the same material in the second theme group. So the second theme group's material matches the first theme group. The main thing about the second theme group is it's in a new key. Some people call it a second theme, a second tonal area, STA, because that's the defining thing. It's in a new key. Here's that idea again. Looks like we could get sentence structure. 2 plus 2 plus 4. Do we get it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ah, shoot. The cadence actually comes here, so it's not quite sentence structure, although it's related. This F stays in the bass and goes to the B flat. That's a cadential 6/4 to a 5/7. All in the key of B flat major. Going to 1 there. Okay. And that's the main melody note here. There's a lot of activity to push it through and keep the momentum rolling. But with D up top, that makes it not a PAC, but an IAC in B flat. So you can see how I work. I sort of sing through the tune, listen for a point of closure, but also look at the bass motion, 5/1 in the new key, and then look for scale degree up in the topmost part. And with scale degree 3 up there, it makes it an IAC in B flat. This is still second theme group. Oh, look at the match between these two. So this is exactly the same as this was. These measures are identical. And it veers off a little bit here. Harmonically, it's similar. Well, this is a little different melodically, but it's the same harmonically. Okay, there it is, yeah. Okay, those two. And then 1. Alright, but look at the key difference right here. That's not scale degree 3 anymore, that's scale degree 1. We have a period going on here. He's taken this first phrase, ends with an IAC, picked up the tail end of it, last 4 measures, and used that as the basis for another 4 measures that gets the cadence that provides a real closure. So here we have our PAC in B flat. Look what's happened thus far. The first theme group was one phrase, gets us to a half cadence. The transition gets us to a half cadence in the new key. Then we have a second theme group that has two phrases, and those combine to form one period because you've got an IAC and a PAC. Do you remember what that's called? That's sectional. This could have, because it's got closure on the tonic in the new key, it could have stood alone, but it's paired with this one to provide closure. Perfect authentic cadence closes it. Okay, now once you have the PAC, remember you're done with the second theme group's body, and everything that follows that PAC is called closing material. So we need to look at that material and see, does it stand alone? Does it have its own theme, or is it dependent on earlier stuff, or is it just so not thematic, not a singable tune or a memorable tune that we would just want to relegate it to status as a codetta? So when you use codetta, it means that it's not really a theme. You can also use codetta to say it's beholding to the material that preceded it. It's derived in some way. So codetta could mean either of those two things. But if we say it's a closing theme, it means it's its own new theme. You haven't heard it before, it's new, and it's a theme. So there's a lot of you say a lot by your choice of words for this closing material. Alright. Oh, look at that. That's like the opening of the second theme group, isn't it? And he's done it twice. Once here, mimicking what happened there. At least that far, those few notes. We'll pick up and then that idea again. One extra note there, but basically the same thing. Twice. Very short, not really, it's beholding to the second theme group for its material. It's using second theme group body material instead of introducing a new thing. So we really want to say codetta. This is not a new theme. Codettas tend to just reiterate closure over and over. Here we went 5-1 in B flat, 5-1 happens again, 5-1 again. So it's reiterating what you've done before. Okay, so we've seen the exposition divides out into a first theme group, a transition, a second theme group that's a period, and then includes a codetta, which is tacked on to reiterate the closure. Closing material again. Still in B flat, and I could mark these cadences again if I wanted. There's a PAC in B flat and another one. I'll go ahead and put those in. PAC in B flat. Okay, the main one's here. This is all reiteration. Let's move to the development section. Developments can modulate, they can sequence, and they usually get to 5, almost always get to 5 in the main key, the home key. So those are the things we want to look for. We can just prime ourselves to look for those kinds of things. I haven't talked about how to label themes because it would have cluttered it all. But generally speaking, what I do is I'll say if it's a theme that belongs to the first theme group, I'll put a 1 on there. And then I'll do dot whatever the label is. That way when things come back in the development I can tell what they are. So the complete label for this would be this is theme 1A. This is still 1A because that's where we first heard this thematic material. Remember the transition is dependent. Second theme group, if we want to give that a label, I would say this is 2 and then give it a label. I'm going to go right down the alphabet. Say this is theme B, but I put the 2 in there to show where it's from. If a transition introduces a new thing, I would use TR for transition and then give it a label. But we don't have a new theme in the transition, so I'm not going to have one of those. I've got really 2 main ideas now, and just having that number there helps me keep track of where it's from. I might want to give this its own label as well. Remember this chunk coming back here? This idea? Maybe I'll take, because it's shorter and not as well defined, I might take from, say, the middle of the alphabet or something like that. I could take from the end and give it a label too. But this 2B idea is a big one because it comes back in the codetta stuff as well. Notice that it's here again. So here's our development, and it kicks off with that same idea, at least that opening motive. So it's derived from 2B. But look what it does, introducing an accidental here. Those A flats, that's not in the signature. He's adding that because we're modulating. See the 5-1 here in E flat. Now, if you're in G and you go to E flat, that's 6. Let's see, I'll put it here. So E flat major is 6 in G minor. He's got a PAC in 6. Or I could write E flat there. Modulation right off. Now he starts something new. Is this familiar? No, this is brand new. So this is a development theme. If you like, you can put a D on there to show that it's new. I should put a big capital D to show, and then give it a label. So we've used A, B. This would be a C theme. This is a new idea coming up here. It's still in E flat. See the 5. This is a treble clef here, so that's B flat to E flat in the bass. It runs through here, and then there's kind of a break. So we need a cadence. We've got G in the top. So in E flat, that's scale degree 3. We need IAC in E flat or 6, whichever one you want to write. So this phrase pinned down our new tonic, and then this one leaves it slightly open-ended. It's authentic but imperfect authentic. Now this takes this idea and embellishes it a good bit, but it runs the same course, doesn't it? It's doing the same thing. But look at this one significant change. There's scale degree 1 in E flat. 5-7 to 1. That's a PAC in 6. So he's even worked in a new theme and a period of its own in the development section. He kind of keeps the ball rolling by moving in the bass line. That seems a little bit reminiscent of this stuff. Sort of, yeah. It's kind of like some of this over here, but slightly different. Okay, but then look on top. You recognize this? In the right hand, you get a very familiar theme. It's from the second theme group. So I'll write 2. B, it's that. It's content derived from theme 2B. Uses it here. He sequences it. It's the same, but down a third, isn't it? This one went up to A flat. This one goes up to F. So there's some sequencing going on. Sequence. It's down a third. Wow, that means we've seen modulation, material in a new key, a sequence here, things that we'd expect. And voila, what do you know, we get the F sharps here too. So we're getting back to the main key starting here. This is still 2B material, 2B sequenced. Now this, let's see, if this had continued, we'd have A flat, F, and then D, but he changes it and goes to C instead, not D. So he's going in a different direction. The sequence is broken off, but it is still 2B material. And with these leading tones, the F sharps in there, you know that he's going to go to G. He's using the leading tone to get there. Okay, and here's what is this? I guess if I take that as the main note, that would be an Italian 6. Ready to head back here to the dominant. Here's our 5. Okay, now look at this. See the lowest note in every measure? D, 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 D. Lots of D. And remember, at the end of the development section, you tend to land on the dominant and then stretch it out. in preparation for the recapitulation, and that has a special name. It's just like in Rondo where you're setting up a return to A. It's a retransition. It's not as if this is its own big section, because it really is just a smaller part of the development. The development includes all these things. It includes the modulation, it includes the sequencing, it includes the retransition. These are just portions of the development. Finally, it leads up, as we noticed earlier, in a chromatic line to the main note of that opening idea, 1A, theme 1A, and that kicks off the recapitulation. So there's a big divide right here. But boy, what a lot of dominant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 measures of waiting for some kind of resolution. Maybe kind of cool to notice how he gets this material. He's getting this, it looks like, from this da da dee dum ba. He's got that lower neighbor thing going on, and then a leap up a fourth. So we've seen that before, but he's really reworked it. And then he starts to vary and do some interesting things. Okay, this kind of comes away and becomes more generic. This isn't really thematic material. But you can see how he's playing with ideas that he presented. That's typical of development sections. Okay, now we're ready for the recap. And the interesting things about recapitulations come where you need to alter material. Mainly that has to do with transitions. If this transition goes to B flat, the transition in the recap can't do that, because if you recall, recapitulations bring everything back to the home key. Everything that used to be in some other key has to be brought into the orbit of the tonic. So see, here's that second theme group material. Is at the beginning? It looks like it. So I'm going to have to cross that out. Let me check. This is first theme group. Theme. Okay, that's unchanged. He can just leave that alone because it was in tonic. He can do it in tonic once again. There's our half cadence there. Oh, that's where it went. This is kind of hard to see, but it's in the left hand. Very audible, I'm sure. So here it is again, that opening theme. It opened the transition. It's probably opening it here. Now he's using some... Well, it's not significant chromaticism. Let's see what he's doing here. Well, yeah, he is. He's tonicizing B flat, but he can't stay there. Ah, yeah. See that F sharp pulls you out? So here's 5/7 of B flat. He's giving you a sense that you're going to move somewhere, because it's got to have the sense of being a transition, of being in flux, but then he has to pull it right back. And this is new. He didn't do this sort of thing before. You can see it's a little bit sequential here. This goes there, this goes there, this matches. This patterning changes a little bit, but it's pretty close to being sequential. That gives you a sense of mobility there. The F sharp is significant because it shows that you are tied in. See the other one up here? You are tied into your G minor. You need that leading tone. Okay, so then he goes, let's see, 6, 4 in the bass, but that's a 2 chord. Leading tone up to the dominant. So here's your dominant, 5 in G, and then the second theme group. So he's had to change, he's had to rework the end of his transition. Let me write transition in. He had to rework it so that you do have a sense of mobility, but you never escape from G completely. You come right back and have a half cadence in the main key. Then we're ready for the second theme group, and he can just move that if he likes. Sometimes he changes it up. Wow, there's quite a bit of change here, where he plays with you a little bit. Check it out right in this zone here. Okay, he's not letting it end. He's going to the dominant there. Finally, you're done. So take a listen to how he gives some feints. It sounds like he's about to go to the tonic and close it all, but he doesn't. Saves it for here. And then everything that follows well, you could call it a coda, but it's awfully short. So you might even use the word codetta, which means it's diminutive, it's small, it's not as big. Notice how he's using the 2B theme again, but now in the bass. A couple times, third time. Winding around, but all G. Okay, so I'm going to write codetta because it's not that. Actually, it's closing, so we have to. I mean, it's just the same as this here. Reworked, it's true, but it has no more weight than that one did, so it would be silly to put coda in there. It's a little longer, but it doesn't have all that much more content to it, so codetta makes sense here. All second theme group, but just kind of like the retransition is part of the development, so the codetta is just a part of the second theme group. I wouldn't want to say that there's definitely no intro, but I wouldn't want to say that there's any coda on this one. This is a small movement, so the first theme group has one theme. Second theme group, one theme. Yes, it's got a couple phrases, but it's still pretty compressed. And in a movement like that, I really wouldn't expect there to be a whole lot of framing sections. And that proves to be true. There's no coda and there's no introduction. But it's a tidy example, and that makes it nice for just seeing how all the elements play out in a pretty compact and easy to digest way in this. Well, there you go. There's a sonata form movement, and you can practice on some others.